Hello, I'm William Stewart, co-founder of Teleios. Welcome back to our verse-by-verse study on the book of Luke. We start chapter 6 today. We are in Christ's ministry around Galilee, above Jerusalem. I think he's up there. That's where people would more likely listen to him. He's away from the leadership of Israel, who really have already rejected him. So this is his first of 3 Galilean tours. And let's go to the text. Verse 1, it came to pass on the second Sabbath after the first, he went through the cornfields, and the disciples plucked the ears of corn and did eat, rubbing them in their hands. And the Pharisees said unto them in verse 2, why do you do which is not lawful on the Sabbath days? Now, the disciples were feeding themselves, and the Pharisees, of course, are the religious rulers of Judea, with wide influence, I think, over all of Palestine. They held strictly to the law, and they added their own books to it, and held this over the people as well. So they were authoritative. They seemed to sync well and have some agreement with the Roman authorities that they exist and function within Judea. I think the Roman authorities probably thought that they kept order, and the Romans loved order. The Sabbath, of course, was what we call Saturday now. It was a day of rest by the Ten Commandments, so they're accusing them. So first off, they complained that Christ theologically said he forgave sin back in chapter 5 with the paralytic, and he sure showed them, he healed them, saying, is it easier to heal a person or tell them their sins are forgiven? So to show that I can forgive sins, he healed the person. So now they're going to be just picky over little things, and this is the first of these about working on the Sabbath. Picking corn was work. Jesus said to them, what did David do himself when he hungered? He went, and they which were with him, his soldiers, either fleeing from Saul, how he went into the house of God, otherwise the temple, and did take of the showbread, and gave also to them that were with him, which is not lawful to eat except for the priest alone. So the showbread were 12 loaves in the holy place outside the Holy of Holies that the priest put there. They represented the 12 tribes of Israel and probably God's provision and God's commitment of the covenant to the 12 tribes of Israel, the Mosaic covenant. And David, as he fled from Saul, this is in 1 Samuel 21, ate that bread, and the priest allowed him. And Christ said, the Son of Man, being Christ, representative of man, is also Lord of the Sabbath. Now you make that connection with David. Remember, Christ is from the line of David. David's a type of Christ. He's the progenitor of Christ himself. So in this is that strong connection to David. It continues, verse 6, a separate story, similar in theme. On another Sabbath, Christ entered the synagogue and taught. Remember, the synagogue is where there was teaching, small teaching institutions, I assume they were small, throughout the land of Israel, taught by rabbis, teachers. And there was a man whose right hand was withered. And the scribes and the Pharisees, remember the scribes are the lawyers who knew the law the best, watched him whether he would heal on the Sabbath day. They wanted to accuse him. And Christ knew their thoughts, told the man, rise up, stand, and he rose and stood forth. And Jesus said, I will ask you one thing. Is it lawful on the Sabbath days to do good or do evil, to save life or destroy it? And without waiting for an answer, he said, stretch forth your hand. He did so, and his hand was restored. And that made the Pharisees, I assume the scribes, really mad. And they got together and wanted to consider how to rid themselves of Jesus. Already, this early in his ministry, they're so violent, they're so jealous for their power and their money. Their only recourse, really, besides poking fun at him or challenging him, is to kill him. He didn't say kill, but might do to Jesus. So here again is a second instance of working on the Sabbath. He heals and does good. This goes against the law, but Christ, we know, is the Lord of the Sabbath from the prior story. We know also that God wanted the Jews to mature past the law, to show mercy to others and fear to God and love, and they didn't do it. In fact, it seemed to get worse by the Pharisees adding their own law to the law so they could control. Otherwise, if you can control the gates of heaven and you can get revenue out of the people under you, then you become very wealthy, having a religious cult, which is really what they were. And so the Pharisees, in trying to control Jesus, were trying to control their own destiny and power. If they let Christ, if they allowed Christ to work on the Sabbath, then people would not respect the Pharisees' power anymore and might follow Christ, and they would lose everything. Okay, so what have we seen today? Well, the first of the Jews, Pharisees' petty complaints, working on the Sabbath. And we've seen where Christ puts them in their place, so to speak, by saying he's the Lord of the Sabbath and healing and doing good, which is a higher good than that of the Jews. So remember, when Christ coming, the Jews and the law ruled Israel. But he's now changing that dynamic. He's taking them, as the Sermon on the Mount says, to a new level of righteousness that can only be accomplished by Christ himself. And he's completing the law, and he's certainly superseding it. So things are changing even now. Okay, complicated. It's, of course, controversial topics that we're discussing, but thank you for listening, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.